Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for a very special and exciting Costa Cruises webinar. My name is Anna. I'm an Industry Relations Manager here at CLIA, and I'm going to just quickly go through some housekeeping before introducing our presenter. This webinar will run about 40 minutes with time for questions at the end. Please feel free to type your questions into the questions module of the webinar, and we'll get to them at the conclusion of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on CLIA's YouTube channel, which is CLIA Global. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Silvio Alonso. Silvio is Director of Strategic Partnerships at Costa North America and has been in the travel industry for 30 years, with over 25 years of cruise industry experience. Starting in reservations at Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, he held various inventory control positions at that organization before transitioning to revenue management in 1995. He held the position of Senior Revenue Management Analyst before leaving RCCL, and in 2002 joined the Club Med North American team as Pricing Manager, where he remained for 4 years. Joining Costa in 2006 as Director of Revenue Management, Silvio returned to his cruise industry roots. And in 2010, he joined the sales force, where he became the Director of Strategic Partnerships, currently covering Costa's key partners in North America. And with that, take it away, Silvio.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm tired just listening to that. Just kidding. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for joining me today for our looking toward the future webinar. I'm going to cover some really interesting points on the Costa restart, our expanded health and safety protocols, as well as we're going to cover some information on Costa as a brand, just to refresh our memories. We certainly are living in interesting times, but I'm hopeful that we are getting back to a restart in Europe, and it will only be a matter of time before we get to restart in North America as well. The reason why Europe is so important to us is because we, Costa, are the distinctly international brand of Carnival Corporation. Our world-leading cruise lines brands, you can see them there at the bottom left: Carnival, Holland America, Cunard, Princess, Seabourn, and Costa Cruise Lines. Those are the world's leading cruise lines, member of Carnival Corporation family of brands. And those brands together make up about 50% of the cruise market in North America. 1 out of every 2 cruise passengers sailing on a ship from North America will travel on one of the world's leading cruise lines brands. So significant market share here in North America for Carnival Corporation. 1 out of every 2 guests sailing on a cruise in Europe will sail on Costa Cruise Line. So we have almost 50% market share, just under 50, about 48% market share for European cruises. So that's why Europe, the Mediterranean, is really our home. It's our key market, not only for European sailing in the Mediterranean and Northern Europe, but also for North Americans sailing to Europe. So Europe is obviously a very key market for us. We have a very close eye on the situation as it unfolds in Italy, Spain, and France. They are going through some back and forth over there as well. The good news is that the vaccine obviously is being expanded, is moving at a pretty good clip here in the States. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get some North Americans going on our European cruises this year, later in the spring to fall and summer, and we'll cover that toward the end of the presentation. Currently the 4th largest cruise line in the world. We're North America's preferred cruise line for an authentic European vacation. Our top markets around the world: Italy #1, Spain, France #2, Spain #3, Germany 4, UK 5. Those are our 5 official languages on board. We now have a 6th official language, which is Portuguese. That's due in large part to our expansion in the Brazilian market, in South America. And we had won Best Mediterranean Itineraries 18 years in a row, according to Porthole magazines. Obviously, as I said, it's our home. We were founded and operate still our headquarters in Italy. So that's a little bit about the brand of Costa. We did launch a brand new ship, Costa Smeralda. She was launched, let me think here, I've lost track of time over the years. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. She was launched at the end of 2019, so December of 2019, and was operating on 7-night Western Mediterranean cruises out of Savona, Barcelona, and Rome when, in March, the shutdown started to happen. So she has basically, and she's operated a few times over the summer of last year, and now she is back on shutdown and awaiting to be redeployed. So this brand new ship that was brand new in December 2019 relatively is still brand new. She only has operated for about 3 months, and she's the first liquefied natural gas megaliner in the world. LNG is a much more economical, environmentally friendly propulsion technology, more efficient as well. You can see there she's just under 183,000 tons, over 1,100 feet long. 64% of the ship's cabins feature balconies, over 5,200 guests double occupancy. So this is a new flagship for Costa Cruise Lines and will remain so because, as I mentioned, she's basically still brand new when she was launched. These are some pictures of the launch from the end of 2019. You can see her there getting out of the yard, the rollout from the yard. This is when she was being launched at the end of 19, as I mentioned. And here are some pictures of some of the interiors. As I mentioned, these interiors are basically untouched because she did not operate for very long whatsoever. There's a picture of a view down toward the atrium. Here we have a specialty dining venue on the right and a staircase in the main dining room on the left there, just to give you a sense of what the ship is like in the interiors. These pictures were all hot off the press when she was launched at the end of 2019. Here's a picture of the Aperol Spritz Bar. The Aperol Spritz Bar is one of our featured items, featured co-branding opportunities on board Costa that we get to co-brand and co-market, and also these are the brands that we feature on board. And here's a really good example of that in the Aperol Spritz Bar, and we'll cover some of our Italy's finest branding campaign in a little bit. So speaking of the Costa experience, as I mentioned, we are all things European, all things Italian. Our Italy's top chef, he's a Michelin star rated chef, Bruno Barbieri, has taken great care to create our menus fleet wide. And they do celebrate all the regions of Italy, all the regions of Spain. I don't know if you guys are watching on CNN, Stanley Tucci Discovering Italy, but he's really diving really in depth into all the different culinary regions of Italy and how they really are so varied and how they are much more varied than I think what we tend to estimate they are here from a North American perspective. I can tell you, Northern Italian cuisine and Southern Italian cuisine are very different. And the Northern Italian cuisine is lighter, much more use of grilled meat, grilled fish, seafood. Southern Italian cuisine is what we kind of tend to know more in the United States, the pasta, the red sauces, etc. But we really celebrate all the regions of Italy, North and South. You've seen more and more restaurants now that even say specializing in Northern Italian cuisine in the States and Canada because they really are that different. And then, of course, we are the Europe's #1 cruise line. So when we go to Spain, we'll have a Spanish night. When we're in France, we'll have a French night, German night, etc. So it really takes advantage of celebrating the culture, the culinary experience of the regions that we're visiting, and also the products that we're able to take on board all of these really varied regions around Europe, around the Mediterranean. So the Costa experience, as I mentioned, we do have the of course main dining a little bit later than you would find on most brands because Europeans do tend to dine later. All of our interiors on all of our ships are completely non-smoking, even in the casino. That's something to note. Only smoking in designated smoking sections outside on the ship. But we do have some really great specialty dining options on board as well. Their specialty dining ranges anywhere from about $15 per person up to about $35 per person. So it's really great value. You can do packages where you try 2 or 3 specialty dining venues and get a discount. And our specialty dining ranges from teppanyaki to a sit-down pizzeria for dinner. There's gelato bars on the ship, on many of our ships as well. There's a Pacific Fusion restaurant available on many of our ships, which is a combination of Peruvian and Asian cuisine, which is kind of an interesting combination. There is a lot of similarities between Peruvian and Asian cuisine, Japanese cuisine specifically. A burger bar, lobster bar specializing in seafood. Really great opportunities for your clients to and everybody to take advantage of our specialty dining, in addition to the main dining opportunities that are available on board as well. And we're going to cover how dining has been impacted a little bit later in the presentation as a result of COVID-19. So as I mentioned, you saw an example of the Aperol Spritz Bar. So Italy's finest brand, we're Italy's finest cruise line. We have started partnering with Italy's finest brands. So these are the brands that we utilize on board that guests are able to enjoy. They're also co-branded, co-marketing with Costa as well. And it's really an authentic Italian experience. You can see Barilla is the official pasta on board Costa ships. We do a Barilla, we do a pasta or risotto course every lunch and dinner in the main dining room. It really is one of the highlights of every meal. Not at breakfast, but not yet anyway. We'll see how. I'm lobbying for risotto at breakfast, but we'll see how that goes. Illy Coffee. Illy is the espresso. It's an Italian roast company. They really take the beans from South America and roast them in Italy to create, your cappuccinos, your macchiatos, all the specialty coffees that are available on board. Ferrari is a really, really high-end wine company. They do red and white wine, and they also do a really nice Prosecco, being the equivalent of champagne in Italy. Champagne in Italy, Cava in Spain, Champagne in France, Cremant in France as well. But Ferrari Prosecco is a really nice Prosecco that we serve on board. And on our newer vessels, we have Ferrari wine bars available as well. I mean, being Italian, we take our wines very seriously. Bruno Barbieri, our Michelin star rated chef that created our menus, also worked with La Banca del Vino, which is Banca Palenzo is a food and beverage university, one of the world's most famous food and beverage universities located in Italy. Of course, being Italian, there's a university dedicated to food and beverage. You got to love it. And then Aperol is, you saw an example of that Aperol Spritz Bar on board the Smeralda. Aperol is an Italian liqueur, very similar to Campari, which we also started. I need to add Campari to this list because we just started co-branding with them as well with the launch of the Smeralda. There's a Campari bar on board the Smeralda, and Aperol is like a lighter Campari. It's a liqueur, a lighter version of Campari, and Aperol Spritz is actually a really popular drink that is popular worldwide. I've seen it quite a bit in Canada, certainly in Europe. Where was I recently that they were drinking it? It's somewhere in Miami. I can't remember. Somebody was having an Aperol in a restaurant that I was in. Aperol Spritz is a combination of Aperol, the liqueur, club soda, and a splash of Prosecco. How bad can it be? I've been known to toss back a few of those over the years myself. So just as an example of some of the great brands that everybody gets to experience on board. The kids clubs on board, I have to say, for being a multilingual company, the kids club and all the employees on board are really so well versed in any one of those 6 languages that I mentioned that they pretty much can provide service to passengers regardless of where they're from. And I mean, I actually think they do an amazing job. Having been on many Costa cruises over the years, giving good service is certainly an art form, and to do it when there's the potential of a different language, I am constantly amazed at what a great job our crew members do on board. Specifically, our kids club. All of our kids clubs, we have kids clubs like any other major brand. More kids in the summer than in the winter because kids do, travel more in the summer in Europe as well. But even all those counselors are well versed enough to be able to speak to the children from around the world and make sure that they are entertained and have a good time. It really is. They do an amazing job of with the languages and dealing with passengers from all around the world. I have to say, I'm always very impressed when I go on board. Specifically on board Costa, the kids club features a couple of really fun activities. Peppa Pig. I don't know if you're familiar with Peppa Pig, but she is like a rock star with the kids. She's a cartoon character that is translated into 40 languages and broadcast in over 100 languages around the world. And it's kind of like an educational, fun cartoon that kids get to learn, language arts, what have you. So she's really popular with the kids. These activities are exclusive to Costa Cruise Lines, and I said the kids just flip for her. And then also another really fun activity is the captain or princess for the day. You can see a couple of pictures there. The kids dress up as a captain or princess. They parade them around the ship, and it's a really nice way. It's a really fun event because they do a little parade around the ship, around the atrium. And of course, the parents are always excited to see their kids front and center as part of the entertainment, if you will. So that was just a bit of a recap of Costa Cruise Lines, where we are. We're going to cover toward the end of the presentation. I wanted to reinforce or re-deliver the message of what Costa is all about, since it has been a while since any of us have been able to be on a cruise ship. I do want to, however, and there is quite a bit of information here. I'm going to be very honest with you. It is very technical, or more technical than the sales and marketing section that we just covered. But I think first and foremost in people's minds when we get back to cruising is safety. So I'm going to cover quite a bit. There are 10 new health and safety protocols that we have implemented as part of the restart. These are being fine-tuned all the time, but these are the latest safety and health protocols that we implemented. And again, there is a lot of information here, so I appreciate your indulging me and taking the time to spend to review this, but I really think it's going to be very key because I think we all will probably say that the next time that anybody sails on a cruise ship, and next time anybody travels, safety is going to be top of mind. So number one, extra attention for every single passenger. So the check-in process will be automated in as much as possible. We're going to encourage passengers to check in online starting 72 hours before their departure. You will be required to give a self-certification questionnaire as part of your health status. So that's one thing. Online check-in before you even arrive at the terminal is going to be the expectation more so than ever. In addition, those of us that have taken cruises before, as I mentioned, I've been in the industry now for 30 years. I remember you just kind of arrived when you arrive, and as long as you get there after the time that it starts and before the ship sails, you're good. Well, now obviously we need to encourage social distancing, so the boarding times will be assigned and will be staggered. So it would be more important than ever that you arrive on time. That punctuality is going to be more important. It will be more like boarding an airplane where they say, arrive at the gate 60 minutes before your embarkation or what have you. It's kind of moving in that direction so that we can control the number of people that are in the terminal at a time and the number of people that are going on the ship at one time. So it will be more staggered boarding time and assigned boarding times. And then you will have a health screening when you arrive at the ship. And even when we were operating before, in the spring and summer of last year, all guests and crew receive a temperature check and a COVID diagnostic test before they are allowed to embark. They take it on in the terminal. They are segregated with their group. That's why even more important that the boarding times be staggered. And then if you get a negative result, then you are allowed to embark. So everybody that's in the terminal that is allowed to embark has a negative test result. Everybody that's on board the ship has had a negative test result. The crew are tested many times, several times during the cruise. So in essence, what we have done is tried to create a bubble, a negative COVID bubble that travels with you on the ship. And we'll get into what happens when we get to port in a little bit. But that is the situation as it stands right now. Second, we're trying to go smart vacation in as much as possible. The more, visit My Costa before so that you have mycosta.com before you get there. So to do your check-in, to look at information, to start reserving activities, etc. We're trying to encourage you to also use the app that's available, your smartphone, the QR codes, which are those codes where you scan a window and information pops up on your phone. Obviously, we're doing that I think it's called quality response. I think that's what it stands for, quality response code, if I'm not mistaken. And it just means less paperwork, less handouts, less menus, less paper menus, et cetera. I mean, obviously we've all become familiar with this, going to restaurants, what have you, on land lately. They're trying to minimize the points of contact. We're trying to do the same thing as well. In addition, our onboard monitors have been expanded so that there's more information available around the ship by just looking at monitors rather than have to take a handout, have to present yourself to speak to a person in person at a service desk, etc. The interactive monitors have been expanded. There's an expanded information TV channel in the cabin as well as a new Call Me service where, and rather than have to go to speak to somebody in person, you can speak to somebody on the phone. I mean, obviously those people will still be available, but we're trying to logically minimize the interactions that you have to have with other people in as much as possible. And obviously, as I mentioned, these are all being fine-tuned. Hopefully these will change as the vaccine continues to roll out. And we are keeping a very close eye not only on the vaccine situation here in the United States and in Canada, but also in Europe, because Europe is somewhat behind here. So even if at some point, hopefully we get the all clear to go to Europe, the European ports have to be open for us to be able to visit them. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I won't even get into the desire and when we'll be able to hopefully start cruising out of the United States. But I know I live in Miami. I'm very anxious to see ships starting to operate out of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, because just those two ports alone represent a huge number of berths that are not traveling right now. So I'd like to think I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'd like to think we're getting there, but I'm glad that we're implementing all of these measures to put people's minds at ease once we are ready to start getting up and cruising. More space for passengers, another big one. We're going to have reduced occupancy. We will not be filling our ships for the foreseeable future. I think right now our maximum occupancy that we allowed is maybe 50 or 60%. Obviously, that's meant to encourage social distancing and keep the cruise as pleasant as possible. Redesigned environments, common areas have been remodeled to, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but encourage social distancing, minimize the passenger flow in and out of places. So that does mean, for example, that there may be limitations on the number of people that can access a space at a given time, for be it the casino, be it the dining room. We'll talk about dining specifically, be it the theater, be it the gym, be it the spa, what have you. I went to I stayed at a hotel about August of last year. It was like kind of my first hotel stay since the shutdown, and it was in Fort Lauderdale. And at one point we couldn't get into the pool. There's just too many people. So we had to wait for people to leave the pool before we could access the pool. It's kind of the reality of living in the times that we are. In addition, if you've been shopping in certain areas of the country, you know that one lane going one way, one lane going the other way. So we're going to start doing that. That's been implemented on board the ships as well, to try to make sure that people don't have to face each other. People walk in one direction on one side, on the other direction on the other side, and there's signs all around the ship to help you navigate the ship while respecting social distancing in as much as possible. Enjoying the whole ship in safety. Masks. We are enforcing the mask mandate on Costa Cruise Lines. You must have a mask when you access the terminal. You must have a mask when you are in public areas on the ship and when you're walking around the ship as well. So once you're with your party sitting in a location, if you're eating or enjoying a drink or what have you, then obviously the mask can come off. But in as much as possible, when on board and interacting publicly with other passengers, you must wear a mask, as must the crew. I have to say, I was hooked on hand sanitizer before all of this, and I could not see it and not want to do it. And those of you that have sailed on ships know that the hand sanitizer was pretty prevalent on board. Well, it's even more prevalent now. Obviously, we're going to encourage people to wash their hands and utilize hand sanitizer as much as possible. I think the entire world has now caught up with my vice of my addiction to hand sanitizer. I'm telling you, it's everywhere now. So as we all know, and then crew devices, they're going to be wearing protective equipment while they're performing their job, and also while they're servicing our guests. Masks are the very least of the protective equipment that they will be required to wear. So let's talk about dining. Spaced out tables are, given the fact that, of course, we will not be filling to capacity, there will be more space available. Not every table will be sat so that you can respect social distancing. Also, unfortunately, the dining with, one of the fun parts of cruising is that you got to meet people from other places at your table. Now, for the time being, you will only be allowed to sit with your specific party. So you will no longer be meeting new people at your table. That said, we're expanding the meal time so you can access the main restaurant at your leisure, longer time slot than usual. So there will be more availability in terms of time to access the restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Obviously, the buffet will no longer be a self-serve buffet. You will be served by a Costa service person, and then you will be able to take your plate to your party's table. Now, the extended meals times does mean there could be a wait, but again, with the reduced capacity, that should not be too much of a problem. And then smartphone menu, as I mentioned, all the restaurants, all the bars at the counter, in as much as possible, to avoid using handout menus as much as we possibly can. So we only have another 5 of these to go. The entertainment concept will have changed as well. So we will do, instead of like we used to do 2 shows after dinner, the show will be repeated several times during the week. So there'll probably be less shows, but more of an opportunity for people to see the shows, because we're going to have to social distance in the theater as well. So not every seat will be utilized in the theater at the same time. Again, based on reduced capacity, that will allow us to do that. As I mentioned earlier, we do want to have fitness and wellness as well. So the pool Occupancy limits will be at the pool, at the gym, at the casino, as I mentioned earlier, and those will be strictly adhered to depending on how many people are going in and out of a particular space. And then the Squawk Club is going to be sanitized several times a day and will only be accessible to a limited number of people, including employees, every day as well, so that the Children's Club is as safe as possible as well. So now that's what's happening on the ship. As I mentioned, in theory, what we have is a bubble because everybody that has gone on the ship has been tested for COVID and came back with a negative result. By the way, if somebody does test positive at the terminal, that person and the entire party that they were traveling with, and if anybody was on a transport with them, will not be allowed to board. So it's very, very strict to create that negative bubble that travels with you. So then when you get to port, what happens is, unfortunately, for the time being, you will not be able to debark the ship at your leisure. The only way that you will be able to get off the ship is if you take a Costa safe shore excursion, wherein you are traveling with members of the passenger contingency from the ship, so passengers from the ship, or crew members from the ship, or Costa crew or Costa contracted employees that have also been tested and came back with a negative result, so that you are not interacting with people from the general public that potentially could expose you, like our passenger, to the coronavirus. So you will only be able to exit the ship if you're on a Costa booked shore excursion that has taken all those safety protocols into account. Even on the buses, on the transports as well, we're going to encourage social distancing by limiting the group size. Again, reduced capacity hopefully will eliminate the operational difficulties that could come as a result of that. But even on the buses, as I mentioned, they will be sanitized every day between every use and reduced occupancy. Even on the bus, you're going to have to wear the mask while you're driving around as well. So the safety protocols, the crew have been given very specific training courses to help them deal with a potential case of COVID on board. Intervention measures. Crew have been trained to respond immediately in case somebody is showing symptoms. There will be quarantine, I don't like to call them quarantine, isolation cabins. There will be dedicated sections on the ship that if somebody were to show symptoms, they would be able to be isolated on a certain section on the ship that is only accessible to people that are maybe showing symptoms. In other words, those people will no longer mix in with the general population of the ship. If they are showing symptoms or suspect a COVID case, they will automatically be put in the isolation portion of the ship, which is a specific section dedicated exclusively to isolation, guests and crew for that matter. Obviously, crew would be isolated separately, but the crew members that access passengers that may be in the isolation area will have safety equipment with them to try to minimize the possibility of infection. And then crew members are subjected to daily temperature checks and multiple COVID tests while they're on board the ship at all times. So that has been an expansion as well. Now we have also increased and upgraded, if you will, to pretty much like medical industry standards, our public sanitation, cleaning methods, etc. So public areas are sanitized several times a day. Disinfection methods, including virus-killing nebulizers. I've seen a few of these at hotels. There's a couple of ways that we can sanitize for virus and bacteria. One of them is heat, or not heat, but infrared or ultraviolet, excuse me. I've seen where they do an ultraviolet light across an entire room. That has the ability to sanitize against virus and bacteria. Also, sometimes there's a nebulizer where in the room it's a gas, and you cannot access that room for a while because it is a gas that kind of floats out throughout the entire cabin, room area, what have you, to sanitize and disinfect that area as well. These cabin, not only public areas, but your cabin will also be subject to the same methods that I'm mentioning here. And then new filters for quality air. So upgraded quality of air filters that do a better job of circulating the filters. When we're at sea, they try to bring more fresh air from the outside. Obviously, when we're out in open ocean, there's well more than 6 feet separating us and any other human being that's on the ship. So we're able to intake fresh air from the outside more easily and with less risk. So all of the sanitation and air filtration systems have been upgraded as well on board. And then finally, last but not least, as you may know, all of Costa ships come with a fully equipped medical center, and doctors have been trained now specifically in how to deal with COVID-19. Obviously, the health of our guests and crew is our top priority, and should any guests show symptoms of COVID-19, as I mentioned, there is an isolation area. They would be treated by medical professionals on board, and then in all likelihood, those passengers would probably need to be evacuated at the next port of call. But that is not for me to say or for anybody to say except for the doctor on board. But I would suspect that they want to minimize the exposure to that passenger on board, and also get them to a place where they would be able to undergo professional medical treatment should any unfortunate incident occur with their condition. So that's where we are with the health and safety protocols. I know it was a lot, guys, but that is a lot of good information. I think that information will put a lot of people's mind at ease about sailing and sailing again. And as I mentioned, those are being fine-tuned all the time. Here you can see, I'm going to switch gears now, and here you can see the restart schedule as of today. This has changed several times over the last year. But as you can see for right now, most of our ships, we're estimating our restart about May or June of 2021. Looking on the bright side of things regarding the restart, I just want to personally say, I know that a lot of people are really very much looking forward to traveling, to getting out, to doing certain things that they have either wanted to do, had to put off. I think we all took travel for granted, and I don't think any of us that love to travel, and I think we all do, obviously that's why we're in this industry, will ever take it for granted again. And I mean, I think the one thing that I can say is there seems to be a lot of pent up demand for future travel. And if you have a client or yourself or whomever that's been saying, I've always wanted to go to Italy, I always wanted to go to Spain, whatever the case may be, I think once we are up and running and able to travel again, I think there will be a lot of people that are going to say, what have I been putting it off for? Let me just do it while I have the chance again. Because as I mentioned, I think we did kind of think travel wasn't going anywhere, but who could have envisioned such a situation than the one that we're in right now? Certainly I didn't. But happy to say, hopefully May, June of 2021, you can see our ships across the fleet will start operating. It remains to be seen when North Americans will be able to start traveling to Europe, but that's going to be as I mentioned, a big deciding factor in when we will be able to start selling here in North America. I'd like to think, by all estimates, that we're thinking late spring, summer, somewhere in that time frame. Actually, I'm sorry, late summer, fall, because everybody does sounding like everybody should hopefully be vaccinated by the summer. So late summer, fall is when we're anticipating we'll start getting the opportunity to start traveling to Europe again. A couple of things to point out: Costa Firenze is a brand new ship. She was just launched in 2021. I hope to be able to speak to the next CLIA webinar. We will present information on Firenze, and then Toscana will be another ship that will be launched at the end of 2021. So the new building continues. I mean, the new build continues. A lot of ships have been retired, but a lot of state-of-the-art ships continue to be constructed in our shipyards around the world. And so then when we restart, we don't have to go through all of these in any great detail, but just to give you a sense of where we plan on traveling, Deliziosa will do Eastern Med out of Venice. Those are the Greek Isles. World Cruise in 21 and 22. Diadema will cover Northern Europe out of Copenhagen, and then West Med Barcelona. Copenhagen in the summer, West Med Barcelona toward the winter of 21-22. Favolosa with West Med Short as well as Fortuna, and then both those ships will cover Northern Europe out of Amsterdam and Stockholm in the summer. And then Fortuna and Fascinosa will have a Southern Caribbean season starting in 21-22. That is as of right now. It is subject to change, but we are not coming back to Caribbean out of Fort Lauderdale or Miami at all. We will operate Caribbean to the Southern Caribbean out of Fort-de-France, La Romana, and Pointe Pietre, in addition to the Fortuna doing Northern Europe again and Kiel, Northern Europe on Fascinosa. Northern Europe the Med has had some ups and downs. Northern Europe seems to have stabilized somewhat more at this time. As I mentioned, this is all subject to change, but as of today, this is the plan for the restart. Luminosa will do an Eastern Med itinerary, 7 nights out of Trieste. Trieste is a charming town, just about 30 kilometers outside of Venice. Magica will do East Med out of Bari and West Med Canary Islands. Bari is a port in southern Spain. West Med for the winter. Canary Islands is one of these winter destinations. From what I hear, is absolutely beautiful. And then Western Med Spain and Dubai is planned on Pacifica. Western Med in the summer out of Spain for Spain, and Dubai in the winter. Asia, Serena will be going to Asia year round. Smeralda, as I mentioned, that brand new ship that we started the presentation with, we've kind of gone full circle. She will be doing her 7-night out of Rome, Barcelona, Marseille, and Savona, hopefully again when she restarts. And then Firenze, which is our newest ship, will do a season of WestMed Barcelona Mediterranean sailings, and then she will also go over to Asia later in 2021. So I'd like to thank you all very much for your attention. I know that there was a lot of health and safety information, but as I mentioned, I do think that's very important. And thank you for your time, and thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. We do have some questions coming in, and I will invite everyone to keep them coming. Our first one is from Kelly. I believe you did mention this. She is wondering if it's necessary to have proof of vaccination for boarding.
Not as of this moment, no. That may be something that's coming in the future, but for right now, the protocol is just to complete a coronavirus test at the port. Remember, we don't have a lot of North Americans going to Europe right now, none to be accurate. So right now, the protocols that I mentioned have only been implemented for European passengers sailing out of Europe. I do suspect at some point when North Americans start going and the vaccination has been deployed, that yes, proof of vaccination will be required, but not at this time.
Okay, got it. And our next question, kind of in the same vein, are there specifications on the masks that you will require for people to wear on board?
I haven't heard of any. It doesn't have to be one of, I don't know what those medical grade masks are, the M9 or whatever it's called. I haven't heard anything like that. It's just whatever mask you would be able to wear if you're on land to go into a store or a restaurant would suffice. I haven't heard any specifications required now.
Okay, got it. Our next question is from Mary, who is wondering the approximate age of people on board. So I know that you mentioned a lot of great children's areas, but is there an age for adults that you recommend?
Our median age tends to run a little bit younger than many of the other brands in North America. It tends to run median age around mid 40s to mid 50s is the biggest age group represented.
Okay, got it. Our next question is from Alejandro, who thinks this was a great presentation and is wondering, in regards to entertainment, do you expect all-inclusive packages to raise? I'm assuming raise in price.
Thank you, Alejandro, number one. I appreciate that. I should mention, if you book specific categories on Costa, if you book in our comfort class, you do get a drink package, a beverage package included with your cabin. It's automatically included. So we are in the process right now of relaunching and pricing out the deployment that I mentioned. So I do not know what the pricing will come in at, but I've heard in talks with revenue management as an ex-revenue manager, I've heard that the desire for Costa will be to be very competitive with price. So I would not think that our pricing would be too much higher than, if at all, than what we were selling at before the pandemic. Hope that answers the question.
Great. And we have some people wondering if it's possible to get collateral, Costa branded collateral anywhere.
Yes, if you're, you can go on costaextra.com. If you are not signed on to costaextra.com already, there's quite a bit of collateral available on there. But our Costa Extra site is just coming back up. If you wouldn't mind, Anna, I will look up how to get people on Costa Extra and I'll send you that information, so that if that's okay. because if you don't have a user sign on, you have to get one. And I think if you try to go on Costa, there should be sign on directions how to get a profile there. But if not, I can try to get that for you and send it your way.
Okay, great. And that was our last question. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Silvio, for all that wonderful information.
And before I move on, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You may be able to get collateral already on CostaCruises.com. There might be a press area there which has some images, an image gallery there. If not, then www.costaextra.com, and I'll try to get the sign-on information to Anna. If I'll check out and see if it's already available. If not, Anna, I'll send it your way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.